Good evening. After a two-day manhunt, 2 sleepless nights, law enforcement have apprehended Vance Bolter. That's 48 hours that law enforcement involved in a complex and dangerous man.
Tim Walz. I don't know who thought he was a good idea. He was like a second iteration of Tim Kaine, but even worse. He turned out to be a path.
Tonight, sparks flew on live TV as political commentator Lindi Li absolutely torched Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, exposing contradictions, shady records, and secrets that his campaign hoped would stay buried. From abortion flip-flops to the infamous Tiananmen Square lie, Li didn't just call Walz out. She ripped his carefully polished Midwestern image to shreds. And what makes this more explosive? Walz is no longer just a local governor. He's now in the national spotlight as Kamala Harris's running mate. The stakes? Higher than ever.
These are women's decisions to make about their healthcare decisions and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. I use this line on this, just mind your own business on this. Things worked best when Roe versus Wade was in place. When we do a restoration of Roe, that works best. That doesn't preclude us.
He was trafficking in lies and conspiracies. He said that he never supported a national abortion ban. We have in writing a screenshot from his website wherein he supported a national abortion ban. So he was just lying with.
Let's rewind. Tim Walz, a former teacher turned politician, built his brand on Midwestern Comm, the dad joke everyman who promised steady leadership. But beneath the cardigan and reassuring smile, critics say Walz's record is shaky, full of contradictions and unkept promises. And last night, on national television, Lindi Li tore through that facade.
Who could possibly think it would be a good idea to lie about being in Tiananmen Square when you were in Nebraska? I mean, come on, it's just so beyond the pale. And now he's thinking about running for president. Didn't he get the memo that the American people do not want a second coming of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz? And Kamala is in California considering a run for governor. We do not want any more DEI woke, any of that. We just don't. We're done with the woke and trans insanity.
Lindi Li came armed with receipts, screenshots, quotes, and the kind of sharp commentary that cut through Walz's carefully staged narrative. One of her biggest bombs? Walz's abortion stance. Publicly, he claimed he never backed a national abortion ban. But Li pulled up archived versions of his campaign site, where he explicitly endorsed exactly that. In her words, he was just lying.
What were
Out
you
of
telling your
bounds.
mom? And how soon was it after the election? Like
A
when
week or
was
two.
it?
When it wasn't at that point, I was just asking questions. Like, it wasn't even. I was like, what happened to the $2.5 billion we raised? Why did we spend it on Beyonce? Why did we spend 2.5? Why did we spend millions of dollars on Oprah? Like legitimate questions that needed the answer. But the amount of hate I got from that was just overwhelming. And the final straw, the moment that I knew that I needed to leave, was actually around Christmas Eve.
And then came the infamous story that has haunted Walz for years. Tiananmen Square. Walz once claimed he was in China during the 1989 protests, only to later admit he was in Nebraska at the time. Critics call it his fabricated hero moment. And when Li brought it back up, the internet lit up all over again.
And then the biggest tell of the evening was when he told the moderators, well, I thought the rules stipulated, or something to the effect of the rules were saying that you weren't going to fact check. And you talked about own goals. That was an own goal. That said everything.
But
So he was
Lindi,
counting on the fact that no one was going to push back.
are you frustrated then that Walz didn't make the argument that you're making to me right now?
I think he did a really good job tonight. And we had a live focus group at
This isn't just about one lie or one flip-flop. Li painted Walz's entire career as a pattern. Overpromise, underdeliver, deny, then lash out. During COVID, his shifting policies frustrated both the left and the right. Lockdowns 1 week, reopenings the next. On crime, he tried to balance progressives and law and order conservatives and ended up pleasing neither. As Li put it, Walz's version of pragmatism is just flipping a coin and pretending it's strategy.
highest rating of the night when he pointed out that Trump completely failed on the border. He didn't deliver on the border wall that he promised. He blew up the border deal that we have border as a campaign issue. So he scored really highly also when he mentioned Matthew 25 and how his faith guides and inspires his empathy for people, a quality that Trump and Vance so abundantly lack.
Here's where it gets bigger. Tim Walz isn't just Minnesota's governor anymore. He's Kamala Harris's VP pick for 2024, which means every past contradiction, every awkward lie, every media fight suddenly becomes national news. And Lindi Li's viral takedown couldn't have come at a worse time. Within hours, hashtags like Walz exposed and Lindi Li trend shot to the top of political Twitter.
It doesn't increase us from making sure that once that child's born, like in Minnesota, they get meals, they get early childhood education, they get health care. So the hiding behind we're going to do all these other things when you're not proposing them in your budget. Kamala Harris is proposing them. She's proposing all those things to make life easy.
The fallout was immediate. Conservative outlets amplified Li's critique, framing Walz as unfit for the national stage. Progressive voices scrambled to defend him, but even some Democrats admitted privately that Li's punches landed hard. On MSNBC, commentators debated whether Walz had been properly vetted. On Fox News, the clips ran on loop.
Feedback. I want to take you back to the very first answer that he gave. Let's just remind ourselves, he sort of stumbled through. Right now the crisis in the Middle East is, front and center of the global news agenda, and we would expect maybe that someone who was running to be the vice president would have more confidence. Let's remind ourselves of what happened.
October 7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners. Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. Getting its hostages back, fundamental, and ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
But this isn't just about Tim Walz. As Lindi Li reminded viewers, American politics thrives on image management. The everyman teacher, the calm dad figure, the grassroots governor. These are stories, not necessarily truths. And when the story cracks, the reality comes rushing out. That's why Li's attack hits so hard. It exposed not just Walz, but the fragility of political branding itself.
What do you think happened when he gave that answer, Lindy?
Well, as I mentioned before, J.D. Vance went to Yale Law School. He's seasoned, and I said this in the previous interview. This is what he does. He's slick and he's sharp, but Walz is a fundamentally good guy. And our focus group of battleground voters, mind you, understand that. They perceive that this is a down-to-earth guy, salt-to-the-earth guy who wants the best for the American people versus Vance, who is backed by Peter Thiel and was a venture capitalist and is working for his billionaire crony.
So, what happens now? Walz's team has two options: ignore Li and hope the storm passes, or respond and risk amplifying it further. Either way, the damage is real. With the election cycle heating up, every debate, every interview, every speech will be scrutinized. And Lindi Li just ensured that the cracks in Walz's persona are now under a magnifying glass.
I'm not on anyone's payroll. I'm not beholden to anyone. That's why I'm here telling the truth. I'm not here to gaslight anybody. This is just the truth.
What is the truth?
The truth is this is just an epic disaster. This is a $1 billion disaster. Actually, it was $1.018 billion, I think, right? There were $20 million or $18 million in debt.
Right.
It's incredible.
Lindi Li didn't just roast a politician. She pulled back the curtain on one of the most carefully crafted personas in American politics. The question now isn't whether Tim Walz can survive this moment. It's whether voters will ever look at him the same way again. Because once the mask slips, you can't unsee what's underneath.
Into that, I have friends that I have to be accountable to and to explain what happened because I told them it was a margin of error race. I was promised, Jen O'Malley Dillon promised all of us that Harris would win. She even put videos out saying that Harris would win. I believed her. My donors believed her. And so they wrote massive checks. I feel like a lot of us were misled. And even on the night of election night, I looked somebody in the eye and I said, are we going to do this? Are we going to pull it off? She told me yes. And I asked somebody else, how are you feeling? He's like, we're going to win Iowa. And I was like,
imagine a live TV moment so explosive. It left the audience stunned and the internet on fire. Lindi Li didn't just criticize Tim Walz, she exposed his darkest secrets in real time. What was supposed to be another safe appearance for Walz turned into a career-shaking unraveling. Tonight, we're diving into every detail of the confrontation that has the political world talking.
What's your take?
My take is the most neglected part of home ownership is the gutters.
It's personal for me.
This is Democratic vice presidential candidate Tim Walz making an appearance on the popular TikTok show Subway Takes.
Had problems with gutters before. You get your basement wet, you get ash dams, cause a lot of problems.
How often do you like looking at gutters?
I look quite often, surprisingly, because
Like
I kind
you're
of judge it.
inspecting.
No, I try not to be judgmental on people, but when I see a well-tended gutter, it says a lot about.
Before we get to the takedown, let's rewind. Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, built his reputation as the everyman politician, calm, steady, practical. A teacher-turned-leader, he branded himself as the dad next door who just happened to command the National Guard. But behind that image, cracks were already forming. From his waffling on pandemic policies to contradictions on abortion rights, Walz has been called out more than once for saying one thing and doing another. Enter Lindi Li. Known for her sharp political commentary and viral takedowns, Li doesn't hold back. When she confronted Walz, she didn't just poke holes in his story. She ripped apart his carefully built image. In her own words, quote, "Tim Walz was trafficking in lies and conspiracies. We have the receipts." And she meant it. This was the moment that broke the internet. Picture it. Walz tries to defend his abortion stance, claiming he never supported a national ban. Lindi interrupts, holding up a screenshot from his own campaign website. The studio fell silent before erupting into chaos. Commentators have compared it to a chess match where Walz thought he was 3 moves ahead, only for Li to flip the board entirely. This isn't the first time Walz has been accused of rewriting history. Remember his claim about being in Tiananmen Square? Critics quickly pointed out he was actually in Nebraska at the time. Or his constant flip-flopping during the pandemic, close schools, reopen them, lock down again. Each controversy chipped away at his steady hand persona. Lindi Li just gathered all those cracks and shined a spotlight on them. After the takedown, Walz's team faced an impossible choice: respond and risk amplifying the viral moment, or stay silent and hope it fades. But in today's political arena, silence is fuel. Social media exploded, rivals circled, and the media replayed Lindi Li's roast on loop. Walz's cardigan charm is suddenly under a microscope, and this time, people aren't laughing with him. They're laughing at him. But here's the twist. This isn't just about Walz. Lindi Li's attack hit at something bigger, the entire system of political image management. Walz just happened to be the latest face caught mid-costume change. And Li? She's the one gleefully pointing out that the emperor's new clothes don't fit. That's why her words hit harder than any traditional critique. They're not just commentary. They're revelation. To fully understand this moment, we have to place it in history. Politicians have been undone by singular confrontations before. Think Dan Quayle's potato moment or Rick Perry's infamous debate slip. But this time, the internet amplifies every second. Rivals like J.D. Vance and Kamala Harris are already seizing the chance to define Walz before he defines himself. And with talk of Walz being positioned as a VP pick, the timing couldn't be worse. For Walz, the road ahead is filled with damage control, fact-checking, and spin. For Lindi Li, it's momentum. Her viral moment solidified her as a fearless commentator unafraid to challenge power live on air. With more appearances lined up and millions of views already behind her, one thing is clear: this won't be the last time she shakes up the political landscape. In the end, politics isn't just about policy, it's about perception. And in the battle of perception, one viral moment can undo years of branding. Tim Walz may have thought his secrets were safe, but Lindi Li just proved nothing stays hidden forever. The only question now: how many more receipts are waiting to surface?